Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Thursday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and today I want to talk about Brandon. Yes, we need to talk about Brandon. And we need to talk about an idea that I mentioned a week or so ago when referring to Dom Smith, and how I'm not quite sure that it applies to Brandon Nimmo. Unless you've been living under a rock as a Mets fan, you probably know that the Mets have been in discussions with the Pittsburgh Pirates for the better part of a month, really, looking at two particular players, Andrew McCutchen, who, as I mentioned the other day, is now off the board, and Josh Harrison. And the player that seems to be drawing the most interest from the Pittsburgh side of the discussion is Mets utility outfielder Brandon Nimmo. And the rumors about the McCutchen deal, which are really just rumors, there's not really any legitimacy to them, but they are rumors, that the Mets shot down that deal because they thought that asking for Brandon Nimmo was too steep. And that sort of made me scratch my head. And then I'm thinking, you know what, there's something else going on, you know. And I thought that something else was that they were looking to do the preferable thing, which would be to go out and get Josh Harrison instead of Andrew McCutchen. Now look, McCutchen's a great player. He's an all-star. He's an MVP type player. But the Mets don't need another outfielder. They need an infielder. They need someone who can play second base, can lock that position down, and in Josh Harrison, they would have an all-star joining their lineup. An all-star who can also play third base, who is a spark plug, who's a top-of-the-order hitter. He checks off a ton of boxes that the Mets need. And so when the Mets shot down the Nimmo for McCutchen deal, a week or so ago, or a couple days ago, or when we heard about it, I was like, okay, cool, that's fine. You know, maybe they're not dealing Nimmo because they would rather save him and use him to acquire Josh Harrison. Great. Yesterday, during the Jay Bruce press conference, and I got to tip my cap to Mets Twitter on this one, allow myself to reintroduce myself, was very widely used on Twitter yesterday. So, good work, Mets Twitter, on that one. But welcome back, Jay Bruce. During the discussion, Sandy talked about the reluctance to deal Brandon Nimmo for anybody, almost to the point where he's like building up of the value for this player who the Mets don't seem to value. And the weird thing for me is I talked about this a week ago, and I talked about it in reference to Dom Smith. It's like, you got to start talking this kid up. Even if you have no faith in him, even if you feel like you have to go out and get an aging Adrian Gonzalez to be a fallback plan at first base, you've got to start talking the guy up so that other teams believe that he's worth talking about. The Mets seem to be taking that approach now with Brandon Nimmo, which, you know, whatever, that's great. But is it really legit? Sorry about that. I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. But what I'm getting at is Brandon Nimmo is a first-round draft pick. He's, by all accounts, a wonderful human being, a terrific clubhouse guy, a guy who has a good eye, who last year, in, again, a very small sample size, put up a really nice OPS, close to 800. But when you compare the sample size across a number of seasons against what Dom Smith did in 6 weeks last year, there's not a giant gap there. I mean, it's not like Nimmo is so far ahead of where Dom Smith is now. The concern that I have with all of this is that Brandon Nimmo is an outfielder where the Mets seem to have, I don't want to say a surplus, but they have enough bodies in the outfield. In the infield is another question. I mean, I just feel like they're playing the wrong hand here, and I've been trying to take a more objective look at everything that's sort of going on in Mets world, and I'm trying not to get angry about stuff, because at the end of the day, none of us really know the whole story. I mean, even when a reporter scoops something and reports something, they're only reporting what they're being told, and a lot of times they're being told what they're being told because that's the story that the Mets want to tell. Whether it be to appease the public interest from fans like us on Twitter, or it be to generate interest in a player from another team, whatever the case may be, we really don't know the whole story, and we probably never will. And that's why I get sort of defensive a little bit of not only the Mets, but just really all baseball and professional sports organizations in 2018, where the fans want every piece of information, every little detail, and they want it yesterday. It's hard to run a professional sports franchise when the audience is constantly wanting to know what the hell's going on, and when you can't do what the sort of stuff that Sandy Alderson does and has become notorious for doing amongst Mets fans, which is sort of play quiet, play hush hush, don't give any info, talk in code basically. But at the end of the day, the point of all of this is the question: is Brandon Nimmo worth holding on to if it means losing out on the chance to acquire an all-star type second baseman in Josh Harrison? My personal opinion is no. As much as I like keeping and developing and building homegrown players, I do feel as though there are some instances where those homegrown players can return talent that the Mets can't grow. And in the case of Josh Harrison for Brandon Nimmo, that's exactly how I feel about it. Nimmo is probably going to have a decent major league career. Maybe he'll get a chance to play somewhere. I don't know where, when, if, but we know what Josh Harrison is, and what we don't know what Brandon Nimmo is, and that's the ultimate dilemma when it comes to grading and evaluating a prospect. You just don't know. You really don't know. It's a complete unknown, and sometimes you can gamble on the wrong guy and shit the bed, and it happens all the time. And I just hope that's not the case with Brandon Nimmo, if what's really happening and what appears to be really happening is really happening. What do you guys think? Is Brandon Nimmo worth holding on to if it means losing out on Josh Harrison? Let me know in your comments below in the comments section, or hit me up on Twitter at Mr_Met. I thank you for watching this video. I should be back tomorrow to report who the Mets have refused to trade Brandon Nimmo for next. But until that time, as always, let's go Mets.